Hi everyone, my name is Natasha and I blog over at ozchick.com, and today I'm sharing with you from Mama Can Do It about the difference between a sewing machine, a cover stitch, and a serger, otherwise known as an overlocker in some countries. So a little bit about me. I've been sewing since I was about 12 years old with a sewing machine, and before that was hand sewing for my Barbie dolls. And now I mostly sew for my kids, and I also sew for myself. And it's my outlet. People always are asking me if I sew to sell, and I don't. I just do it for my own enjoyment, and I really love the sewing community that we have with all the social networks and stuff. So I enjoy it. I love meeting other people who sew. I live in the DC area, and we actually do meet up with other seamstresses every now and then, and that's super fun. So I'm going to share with you about these different machines. Okay, so this here is a basic mechanical sewing machine, and my primary machine actually is a computerized machine. It's a lot more expensive. It does a few more things. Um, and you sort of get what you pay for in a machine. So it's definitely worth buying according to your budget. I happened to get this right when we got married with our some of the money that my parents gave me for my wedding, so I was able to splurge a little more. Now that I have kids, I probably wouldn't have gone that route, but I love that machine. I've had it for about 10 years now, and it does everything that I need it to do, and nothing has ever gone wrong with it. So I definitely recommend not going for the $50 machine and spending a little bit more. But anyway, this machine here, this is the Babylock BL9. This machine retails for about $100, and it's actually a really fabulous machine. It has it's pretty simple to use, and this is pretty typical of any mechanical machine. It has your basic stitches. You can do things like a buttonhole. You can sew on a button with it with just a zigzag. You can do a basting stitch, which is a temporary stitch. You can do your regular stitches. You can do a zigzag, and it's got a couple of decorative stitches with it too. And not every basic machine has some decorative stitches, but this one does. You can adjust your stitch length, which is helpful if you are top stitching or if you're basting, depending on what you're doing. So you've got a few different things there. You can adjust your tension. This one here has different types of bobbins come in different types. Often these days you'll find a drop-in bobbin, which comes in over here. This one actually is a push-in bobbin, and it goes into this section here. There's a few different benefits to a push-in bobbin like this. These are not super common anymore. Most machines these days have a drop-in. I'm not sure about the rest. The Babylock do make some which are a push-in like this, but I think most of theirs are a drop-in. Bernina, on the other hand, which is what my main machine here is, all of their machines have a push-in bobbin. They don't do any of these drop-in. The beauty of that is when you're in the middle of sewing, if you run out of bobbin thread, you can just put new bobbin thread into your bobbin and you can keep sewing. You don't have to take your work off your machine, actually. So that's actually really helpful. The other thing is, from what I understand, machines that have a push-in bobbin are usually stronger and more heavy duty. So that's something to consider as well. If you're looking at a computerized machine, you'll just have more information up here to tell you what you're looking at. You have a lot of different functions. I've got a lot of different decorative stitches there. But on this, just like on the mechanical, you can still do a zigzag stitch, which is helpful for doing knits, or just finishing off seams on a woven garment as well. This one also has a one-step buttonhole, so I just have to press a button and I will have 12 buttonholes that all look the same. Whereas on a mechanical machine, you have where is it? You have it right here. It's a 4-step, 4 or 5 steps, something like 4-step buttonhole. So it's all manual. You have to mark them each time. So that can be a little tedious if you do a lot of buttons, but that's how machines have been forever. So that's pretty standard. And then one thing about a sewing machine versus a serger is you have a whole lot of different feet that you can choose from. This one here is just a regular foot. You can get, this here is a walking foot, and this makes it a little easier for doing knits, or if you're trying to line up stripes or plaids, you usually will want one of these. Also, if you're sewing with knits, it will help stop the fabric from stretching as you sew, because that is one of the problems that you can get with just using a sewing machine for doing knits. This is my serger. This is a Juki MO654DE. This one is very similar to another Juki model, which is a 644. This one's a little bit more heavy duty. One thing I like to do with my sergers, I like to keep my, you can see it up here, I like to keep my tweezers right up there, because otherwise they go missing. So I saw that tip somewhere else, and I'm like, that is genius. So that's where I put my tweezers. And you need those for threading. Things with a serger, you've got 4 different places usually for your threads to go. You've got your lower loopers down here, and your upper loop, your loopers down here, and then your needles up here. With most sergers, most sergers have 4 threads. Some have 3, some have 5. Depends on the features that you're looking for. I think a 4 thread is fairly standard, and most people would be happy with that. One thing that you want is differential feed, which is marked by this little button over here. This changes the speed that your fabric will feed through between the top and the bottom, which is really helpful if you're wanting to do gathering, or you're working with a slinky knit, or you're not. So different things. I could spend hours telling you all about sergers, so I am not going to do that today. But anyway, a serger is great for different things. You can sew a t-shirt with one. You can sew anything stretchy is really perfect in a serger. But also one thing that a lot of people use it for is finishing seams on a woven garment, to make it's a quick way to finish a seam and give it a nice strong finish. There are definitely other options that you can just do with a sewing machine too, and I'm not going to go into those. This here is the mammacandoit, shoot, I forget the name of it, but it's the peplum that recently came out. And this was completely constructed, I think pretty much completely on my on my serger. And you can see the where the serger, here we have this white thread here. This is what the serger seam will look like, and that's a balanced seam. Like that, that's the bottom and that's the top. One thing that I suggest you do when you get a serger is to make a book of all the different types of stitches that you can do with your serger. Now, I picked this one up from an American Sewing Guild class that I took with Pamela Leggett of Craftsy and Threads magazine. We had her come into town, and I just happened to find out about it, so I went to her class, and it was really great. Even though I've been using a serger for years, it was still handy to get some extra information and actually finally make this book, which I'd always talked about doing and obviously had never done. So she had us do like a page with easing fabrics, and in this we write down, let me find a clearer page. So we, okay, let me turn this around. Okay, so we have, we write what the left needle is doing, whether you're keeping the right needle in or not, what the upper looper tension for your machine is, the lower looper, and the stitch length. No, something to note with all sergers, every single one is a little bit unique, so you have to play with your serger for the tension settings. Generally a 4 is a standard setting, and you can usually start with a 4 and then move around from there. But definitely make a note of what your actual serger preferences are for each different stitch, because that will be different for every machine. But here's some other pages that we made. We made one for flat lock, attaching lace, doing this flat lock stitch as a decorative finish, different widths of it. And then how the tension can change It's worth making a note of how the tension changes when you're doing, like, say, fleece versus cotton versus something like denim or something with some stretch to it. So there's different pages that you can do. I will do my best to look for some of these sheets, and I'll link them in the video if I can find them. This here is the Baby Lock cover stitch. I use this one. You can get a combo machine, which would be a serger combined with cover lock function. I opted for a standalone machine, mostly because I hate changing my threads and needles around, so I was able to do that. These machines come with options for 1, 2, and 3 needle threads on them, depending on the brand that you have. Most of them will allow at least 1, and then you'll have a choice of 2 or 3 depending on which one you go with. So what I like to do a reverse cover stitch, and that's this one here. That there, we'll try and get close if it lets me. Okay, so that there, I think I did I want to say that's a 2. It's either a 2 or a 3. I can't even. Yeah, that's a 2. With 2 needles. This one here, if we look here, this sample that has 3, and that's a reverse. And that's what it looks like on the other side. Usually, you wouldn't do a 3 needle unless you were doing that you were looking for this decorative stitch. And then here we got 2 threads on the back. So that there is with 2 needle cover stitch. That's it from me. I hope that I have helped you make a decision about which machines you need in your life, and happy sewing!